So I'm back way earlier than expected. I thought this would take a little longer to get together, but ultimately I felt the need to just continue and sort of just keep talking because I don't want to put this off and then forget slowly about everything and then have to reread and whatnot. So here we are with episode 2, Turn of the Golden Witch. I wanted to organize this a little bit more and sort of make it so there is actually something to see instead of it being like a podcast for episode 1. So I sort of went through and kind of organized and brought up and wrote down things I wanted to explicitly talk about. These probably aren't the only things I'm going to mention, but I just kind of wanted to have it all out there. So A, there's something to look at, and B, so I don't forget because there's a lot of things start coming into play with episode 2. Episode 1 is very almost self-contained. It's its own murder mystery, standalone almost, until of course the very end where it reveals that there's a big meta aspect to it. But episode 2 is almost like the introduction to the thematic core of Umineko. So there's a lot to get into, and so I have all of that sort of things to go over. I have Umi open as well because why not? Who knows? There may be cause for going back into Umineko question marks as I have done many times before. So just in case, I have in addition, since we're getting into the more theoretical aspects of the mystery and whatnot, now that sort of the introduction has been made, I've brought together, or rather, I've brought the questions document that my friend made while he was theorizing up until episode 4, and he shared with me upon my reread. And it's basically our sort of mental like process between all of the episodes and their mysteries and the reds and how to navigate around them and whatnot. So I just wanted to have this so it'd be very easy to go like, okay, first Twilight episode 2, Kraus, Natsuhi, Eva, Hideyoshi, Rudolph, Kire, boom, that's it. And all the reds are there. Thought process, boom. So yeah, simple enough. And then I of course have the BGM. I found like there's this by this VGM collection person. They have playlist of the episode specific soundtrack, which is exactly what I need. I don't want to go over any of the episode 1 soundtracks again, and it has thumbnails of the scenes, and I believe when they first play, which is also really helpful, sort of activates my mind, as I said last time, where listening to the music reminds me of the scenes, brings out the emotion I felt during them. So I thought it'd be a very good, nice resource to have open with me. So that's also there as well. So I suppose I don't know necessarily if I'm going to go in order, but the way these are kind of sorted already is in line with the soundtrack in the events that happen. So I guess I'll just start with Cage and the flashback scene with Shannon and Kanon. I'm gonna try to break my habit instead of calling them Shannon and Canon because I know how it feels to hear people mispronounce things, even though it's technically not mispronouncing to me since there was no voices at the time, but of course I wanted to be easier for other people. So uh yeah, I suppose Cage will be the best introduction to the flashback and Shannon and Kanon. So we'll begin with that. I remember making so many jokes, as well as some of my other friends, about the aquarium date. Aquarium Date 2 is going to be at episode 8. It's going to be the real keynote at the end of Umineko. But this is a very very nice track. It's almost disconnected from all the struggle and strife that we find on October 4th and 5th in 1986 on Rokenjima. And that's fitting because this plays during, I know I've heard it many other times besides in these flashbacks, but maybe I haven't. Either way, it's very fitting for these two, George and Shannon, and their relationship. It's very sweet, almost adolescent period in their lives, and it just like as I described that one Moonlit Night track. I don't think that's exactly what it's called, but it's almost like it's like a budding romance, and the strings are very pretty. Nice section coming up here. And one thing I've always loved about I don't know exactly who composed this. I wish sometimes they have it in the description, sometimes they don't. And I don't want to guess, because if you guess and you're right, okay, that's nice. You know your stuff. But if you guess and you're wrong, it's like, ooh. So, unless it's in the description, I don't want to make any assumptions. There are some I definitely can tell. I like Die or CTS or M Zaki, but I don't want to guess for this one because it's not too clear to me. Even though I think it's Die, I want to say it's Die, but regardless, it's a very nice song, and I think I'll keep it going on in the background as I go to talk about, I guess, Shannon and Canon. So they together, they don't have much screen time at all on episode 1, because you meet Canon when all the family from living outside the island arrive, and he has to struggle with lifting up the heavy box, and Battler comes in and picks it up for him. But we get another scene where I think it's Canon telling Shannon not to get bullied by Nazi. I don't know. There's something. I know Kumasawa was looking out for the two of them, which is a very nice little detail for later on, but they don't interact much in episode 1, and that's of course because Shannon is one of the victims of the first Twilight in episode 1, along with Kraus, Rudolph, Kirei, Rosa, and Goda, of course, the legend. And so it's nice to have this flashback where we really see them interact with each other, because you don't really feel that connection that they have, as it's told to us in episode 1 of they've known each other from Fukuin House. And you get a lot more of a sense that they've been connected with each other for many years. But what's interesting is that even though we feel that connection, the scenario that they're present in isn't all too, it's not very pleasant. It's actually the first introduction, I think I can say the first introduction of Beatrice on Rokkenjima, like visually, which is a very, 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 very big indicator of a lot of things in terms of mystery, which it's gonna be a fun thing to discuss for this episode, because I have down here, this episode is full of locked rooms, which is an absolute pain in the ass to deal with, and my friend and I did not have fun thinking about it at all until we learned some of the later rules, which I'll actually mention Rule Y with Shannon and Canon here. Actually, I guess I'll just go over the rules in case everyone doesn't know. It's not none of them are explicitly said in anything in Umineko. I think I heard from someone that they're stated in the manga, but I didn't read it. I don't really plan on it, but it's 3 rules. Higurashi is the same way. Higurashi has 3 rules that basically every game board or every fragment in the mystery is bound by. I can't quite remember what they are in Higurashi. I know it might be Tomitake and Takano always die at the Watanagashi festival. I think that's Rule X. I think Rule Y is someone always goes insane from the Hinamizawa syndrome. And Rule Z, I think, is the Sonozakis always go and try to cover things up. I may be mistaken. but I think that might be right. Anyways, in Umineko, they're a lot more useful because I mean, Rule X, Rule Y, Rule Z. Only Rule Z is really like kind of an indicator of like some things going on in the background in Higurashi, but you're not told it until like way later on, like far past question arcs. And like Rule X is just a given. We always see Takano, I should say, Takano and Tomitake dying every Watanagashi, and then Rule Y, someone always goes into like they don't really indicate anything, but in Umineko, it's a whole different story. Two of them, Rule X and Rule Z, are kind of. I suppose that before going into the rules, I should mention that. So a friend of both of us, he had read Umineko already, and he acted. The best way I can describe it is as Saint Bernard is to, or perhaps Virgil. I think Virgil in the Divine Comedy. If there's a lot to talk about the Divine Comedy in Umineko, but Virgil in the Divine Comedy, except not clearly indicating of like how things are, but like as sort of like a natural guide. And he mentioned the rules to us, which he gave sort of like hints to what they were, but nothing to the point of like absolutely giving it away. It took us so long to actually get them, and only upon finishing Umi that I learned Birkenstall's letter, which was released for something in Komiket, I think. Anyways, it was released after or alongside episode 3, I think after, and Birkenstall mentions these rules, and needless to say, it would have been very helpful if we had seen them, because it mentions Rule Y is the source of Beato's magic, which is, yeah, that's pretty much it. She hits the nail on the head. She says, and then she says Rule Z is incomprehensible, and I can't quite remember what she says about Rule X, but anyways, the 3 rules. Rule X is all the adults. It's like something along the lines of all the adults need money. That is to say, like not like the Kumasawa or I guess Goda could apply maybe. I'm not sure, but mainly talking about the adults' siblings. All of them are in need of money, so it wouldn't be a surprise for them to team up against Battler and be accomplices. So it's not really. I mean, it's not really. It's very much like the Rolex and Higurashi, where yeah, it's kind of a given that these adults will do anything for money. That's like when we see that with Ava in episode 3, we see that with things later on in episode 7. So it's mostly a given. It doesn't really have much indicators. Rule Z is also one of those where it's mostly figuring out just for fun. We did it at the end of episode 6. Our friend was like, yeah, there's no reason not to. You're going to get told everything after finishing episode 6 anyway, so you might as well theorize about everything to your heart's content. And Rule Z is exactly that. It's just that Beato doesn't care how it ends, whether it be the epitaph being solved or everyone dying. It doesn't matter. So that's also a quite useless. I don't want to say useless. It's more of like a. It's more of a thing. It's more telling of her character rather than it is meant to be a rule used by us to solve the mystery. But Rule Y is definitely the biggest one, and I actually, just to mix things up, I like mixing up music, and I'll be. Oh, it's not here. I forgot. No, I'll just search up. I love Thanks for Being Born so much, so I'm just gonna put it on because I can. Even though we haven't. This is episode 3, I believe. But the song is so good. Anyway, so Rule Y. So this is the big one. And it's something to our dismay is basically stated to your face in episode 5 at the very beginning. And both of us essentially read the prologue of episode 5, and it's right after that word stated that all lies are depicted as reality. Meaning if everyone agrees, like who's present in this scene, that something is as thus, it's depicted to us the reader as reality. That is the source of Beato's magic, as Birkenstall put it. And I promise this will all come back to the Shannon and Kanon bit, but that is the essence of Rule Y and Beato's magic. There's also this additional portion with the golden butterflies, and if anybody sees them, they're either on the accomplice's side or they're going to die in 30 minutes. That one is a little like it's more of it's very nice to have for just crossing out like accomplices for certain twilights and whatnot, but it's something like extremely telling. As Rule Y basically sort of fixing everything really. I don't remember if we figured it out on episode 2 or 3, but that was the biggest problem we had with understanding how Umi works, and everything started clicking into place, after figuring out the source of Beato's magic. But anyways, all that is to say, Rule X, Y, Z, as is said by Byrne, implied by Byrne, I should say, is that Beato only controls October 4th through 5th of 1986. Meaning, the rules that she made, because those rules also get broken after she stops being the game master. They're broken in episode 5 and 6. And after that, there's not really games anymore in a typical sense. But there's basically what I'm trying to get at here, and it's what sort of keyed us in on our belief that Shannon and Kanon are somewhat related to Beato in some sense, is the fact that they see Beatrice in the flesh, and it's presented to us as so, despite not taking place on October 4th or 5th. And she's not like really present physically, because that's what, at least from what I've interpreted, suit Beato is, unless like explicitly shown as Beato getting in the dress later on, like in episode 7, if I remember correctly. Yes, it's episode 7 where all that gets shown. But they see Beato. It's almost as if Shannon like summons Beato at the painting, and she appears in the flesh, only visible to the two of them, and it's such a fascinating scene, because it's especially after Beato is first revealed in episode 1 at the very end in this meta universe, and she's not like really present at all physically and during the game board, and all of a sudden now she's out of it and she's real, and Shannon and Kanon can see her. So it almost clues you in on the fact that the two of them have this special connection to Beato that not everyone else has, and it puts a lot of things into perspective about these scenes in episode 2 early on, with context from later on in the story. So the main thing, of course, is later on, the second line or third line I have here is the butterfly brooch, which essentially allows for Shannon to be allowed to love, and that's of course with George, my favorite. Oh God, he looks so funny in PS3. I can't. I don't know if if in the aquarium he has the Tomitake shirt. I can't quite recall, but I think that's absolutely. I know, because I've seen the PS3 sprite with the Tomitake shirt on, and that's so funny. I love how Ryukishi nods back towards Higurashi, but the butterfly brooch, I wasn't expecting it to be so relevant later on. This is another thing where that's set up from the very, very beginning, that it gains relevancy later on and adds a whole new layer to this episode. But the butterfly brooch that allows Shannon to love is given by Beatrice, and sort of I suppose since this is just spoilers for the whole thing, I guess I can sort of get into my thoughts and like content of the later episodes. But if Shannon, Kanon, and Beatrice are all one, as it is shown to us, then it's almost like we see Shannon like it's allowing herself to love by being given the butterfly brooch from Beato, and we see that sort of connection build with them and George, or her and George, I should say. Her and George build together their relationship. She feels the ability to love, and in return, she breaks the shrine, which is quite interesting because I remember theorizing that since it's a mirror, it's almost like as breaking one's reflection and whatnot. I haven't thought much further about that, but just an interesting like fact about the what the shrine holds in it. But Shannon has this brooch, and she continues her relationship with George and Kanon. From what I'm remembering, I eventually he goes on to break it, and in a rejection of how with Beato's sort of delight in tearing apart couples, which is, I mean, it all makes sense when you look at the second Twilight of the Epitaph, to tear the two who are close apart, or something along those lines. I don't quite remember it off the top of my head, even though I should. Especially, I'll save that for episode 3 because that's where it's. I'll go over the whole deal of solving that mess. My oh my. That's all I'll say. But Canon breaks this butterfly brooch, but we learn later on that this is all kind of just how it's meant to be, with the episode 6 games, where the brooch needs to be whole. That is to say, and the two halves need to join and form one in order for one of them to have access to their love. And as we know, with Shannon and Kanon inhabiting the same body of Yasu, it's like it's as if it represents a choice, essentially, a choice between Jessica and George, because I've always found it fascinating, even beforehand, that it's Shannon that informs Jessica of, or yeah, I think it's Shannon who sets up Jessica and Kanon joining together to go to the festival, which plays the beautiful Toho song, or fan song, I should say, Sudapetan, which I'm so I'm so sad they got taken out in other releases and other people didn't see it, but it's hilarious and also awful for who it's played in front of. And yeah, it's a very unfortunate. I doubt Ryukishi did it intentionally. I don't quite know when the song was released, because I know in the middle of it is there's a reference to Higurashi, of course, with Oyashiro-sama, and I think scratching your neck and whatnot. But yeah, I think for now I'll leave it at the butterfly brooch is almost like a choice of love between the two of them, whether or not one they either picked Shannon or excuse me, whether they pick Jessica or George, because there's one of the most fascinating things about episode 7 is that it really isn't like an answer sheet, as Featherin and Burn Castell, like, I don't want to say advertise, but as they sell it, as Burn Castell sells it to Featherin, it's almost like it's a confession, but it's so vague that it's just like a story, and you're left to interpret it as you will. And I'd like to see because we know Kanon is manifested as a support to Shannon's universe. You need two people to create a universe, and Kanon is there to sort of support Shannon or Sayo as a little brother. And we can only speculate if Sayo found love in Jessica as well, because they obviously went together to school, which is sort of what's implied with episode 7. But it's very fascinating. I'm gonna save it for. I don't want to get too much into it now because that's an episode 7 thing, which is quite different from what's going on here now. But it's the butterfly brooch. It's a choice of love, I think, for now. Shannon and Canon. Uh, I'll be talking. We have the ocean is blue, and without love, it cannot be seen. So I'm just gonna quickly go to Jessica and George. I think George is for the most part. I would say he's the same in episode 1. I don't think he gets as much as Jessica because Jessica and Canon's relationship wasn't exactly like. I don't think it was even like we see her cry over his death in the boiler room, even though he's not dead. But well, we won't talk about that quite yet. I guess I'll save all the mystery solving, like the full on mystery solving, for episode 4 as a summary of that. Because I don't think I went too much about it, in episode one's rambles. But anyways, this is episode 2. Jessica, I'll wait. I think I'll go through the Twilights to talk about how she is, but she's very in this flashback that Cage plays in. It's it's the first time we're really seeing much of her character outside of because of how much she's shackled by Natsuhi, and I don't want to say Natsuhi in particular, more so just the Ushiromiya family status and this freeing nature she has playing in a band at school, and just how she acts in general. I think is what probably inspires Kanon to love him, or excuse me, love Jessica, because he is created much more reserved and much more serious, almost as a counter to Shannon. So I think it's almost like Jessica and George are showing them worth, showing them that they can be loved. But they get to the point where they have to choose, and once again the Bruce and the proclamation of loves in the duels in episode 6, they're all representative of that, but that's for another time. The good old, the grand old, the Umineko quote, I think I can say is without love it cannot be seen. And this, wow. Over the course of reading Umi, over the course of theorizing, I don't want to say I'm definitely not going to say 2 years, because I did not. I read Umi very quickly, QAs that is. I don't remember in 2022 when, but it was very quickly. I theorized. I took notes. I didn't theorize much. I took notes. I was gonna wait till episode 4 to fully start theorizing, because that's how I typically like doing things. My friend is much more of a machine gun approach. He just constantly he theorizes, sets something in stone, and then when like a red comes into play or a different story beat comes into play, he quickly he just readjusts it, sends off his blue again, and then just keeps rolling with it until he reaches the end. But I like to instead wait till I have the full picture and then sort of and whatnot. But anyways, without love it cannot be seen. So we hear this line a lot, and I guess it's going to be connected. I'm going to talk about it in tandem with The Ocean is Blue, but first I just want to... Actually, I guess I'll start with that because it kind of explains the whole concept, really. Like, it's not a very difficult thing, but I think it's a very hard thing to truly understand as Kanon struggles with. So it's the scene. I think it's while Beato and Canon, Beato and Shannon are having a tea party, and Canon kind of tells Beato to fuck off, and then Shannon and Canon have a discussion, and she asks him if what color is the ocean to him, and he says it's like a grayish, almost sort of hue. It's I think maybe it's a cloudy day or something, but he sees it as like a kind of sort of grayish, and Shannon replies with the ocean is blue to her. It's a beautiful azure blue to her, and that is without love it cannot be seen. It may be the most gray tinted blue there is. It's nearly every aspect of the bluish hue is gone, and still she thinks, not she doesn't think, she believes, and she sees that it is blue, and it is a beautiful blue. And in a nutshell, that is without love it cannot be seen. It's you can't see something that you refuse to interact with, refuse to truly believe in. And we see that so much with just, I suppose, magic. The magic is the main aspect of this quote. Well, I'll definitely talk about this. I'm already thinking this line's context in episode 3, because from what I remember, or no, not episode 3, episode 4, because Okonogi also says it, and it's referring to in Ava, from what I remember, his belief in Ava, that he can trust her story and act on her behalf. So that's another aspect to it. But magic is it needs someone to see it. I think that feeling of being seen is also very much present in the character of Yasu, Beatrice, Shannon, and Kanon, all of them. But that's for also much later. But it's a very, it's such a core statement to the very roots, the very foundation of Umineko. And the ocean is blue. This metaphor is such a perfect way of explaining it in such simple terms, because it's it really makes you think just what it means to see something, what it means to believe you've seen something. Because I could stare at, and no, I won't go that way. I could, let me rephrase that. If, oh god, the only examples that are coming to me are very morbid. Hmm. I guess I'll do something simple. So let's say I lost something very important to me, and there is absolutely no way I can ever retrieve it. Let's say I lost it while swimming. It fell into the depths of the ocean. There is absolutely zero way. Let me add the fact that it was eaten by a shark, and that shark went under a sand mound and was buried and died in the depths of the bottom of the sea. There is no way for me to get it back. But if I were to if I were to think to myself and look at my hand, and if I really wanted to, if I really adored it, if I really loved it that much, I could see it. I can see it in the palm of my hand. I can feel it. I can grasp it. It's still, and I suppose I can do the same thing. I could do it with an example with you on the other side of this screen. Suppose, no. Hold out your hand and just look at it for a little bit. And I'm going to place I'll place a Rubik's cube. I quite like them, and it's there. If if you really believe, if you really truly believe, if you really want to, if you have the love, I suppose is kind of like a, I don't want to say narcissistic, because maybe like a, I don't want, because saying you don't have the love to see it is forcing you, asking you to have an attachment to me to see something. But if you want to believe that you're holding that Rubik's cube in your hand, and right now it's spinning around, right now it's facing blue towards you, and there's a little, it's wearing a little top hat that's only covering one square on the top. Just like Anj, you don't have to see it, but as long as you can understand That's just magic. That's what magic is. It's believing and seeing and understanding. And all of that requires love. It requires understanding from the beholder, that who sees things, because only seeing things can we really truly really truly believe they're there. There's the ever famous phrase, seeing is believing. And of course that's only in reference to visually seeing, but I think this line, it allows for a more deeper understanding of really truly seeing, what is really looking at something, acknowledging it's there, and affirming its place in the world. That was a lot of yapping for that line alone, and even though I'm gonna come back to it way more later, because it just keeps coming back and coming back and coming back, and for good reason, because it's a very very beautiful line, and I've thought about it for. Of course, I've made fun of it a lot because my friend would nonstop, different from the one who was our guide, and different from the one I was theorizing and theorizing it with, but another who would always repeat the phrase, "Without love, it cannot be seen," and it's I see now that it was for a very good reason, because that is the core of Umineko. Or I don't want to say that's the core, because Umineko is so massive. There's so much going on that I don't know if I can claim it's the core just quite yet without having gone over everything. But we'll say it occupies a space in that core. So I think that's pretty much these five done. We'll return to Shannon, Kanon, Jessica, and George later on, the later twilights and the story of episode 2 as it progresses. But for now, I'd say we're done with them. So I guess I'll move on to Golden Sneer, because this is when Suit Beato comes into play, and I guess I'll start talking about the very fun game that Beato and Battler play throughout the question arcs. I can't even, because Beato's gone after episode 4. So yeah, the games they play from episode 1 to 4, and the rules she established and how it works. But anyways, Golden Sneer. It's a very it's a very accurate name. The piano is so almost snarky. But the pauses is very. Bum, 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 bum. I don't think there's much for me to say about the piano part. You kind of just, you can kind of hear it without like any sort of music theoretical aspect to it. It's just, you just feel that it's sneering at you. And the strings only add more to that like elevated, like that, how elevated Beato is in position to you, as if she owns the whole island, which she does. But a very good track at getting that feeling across. I quite like it a lot. I like this part coming up with the woodwind. Or no, that's the woodwind. It's harpsichord. Excuse me. I think that's a harpsichord. I want to say it's a harpsichord, but I lean on my stringed instruments. And I guess I'll go over the game, Suit Beato and the Reds, all right now. Or maybe I'll do Suit Beato first. So since this is the first, she shows up when the song starts playing, and Genji is escorting her, and oh, Genji's escorting her. Kirei sees her, and I haven't checked like my response or my answers yet because I'd need to reread Umi to do that. So for now, Suit Beato is the physical representation of her being there because Beato is shown to us in that suit again, not an episode where the epitaph has been solved and she's basically given up on her game. But Subeato shows up one last time in episode 4 where she asks Battler she let specifics of the question, but she describes Battler's sin to her, and she's sort of asking, "Do you remember? Do you know what I'm referring to?" Which is it very obviously needs to be something. It very obviously needs to have Beato be there in person because otherwise, Peace Battler wouldn't be able to interact with her. But that's pretty much it. It's a really clever way. If this is what it's meant to be, it's a very clever way to represent the difference between Beato being physically there on the game board that everyone can see, and Beato that like a Beato that isn't there, because Dress Beato can appear on the game. You know, she's not truly there. That's just the lie. I don't want to say lie. That's the magic that everyone believing in her in that scene believes in and allows for a reality to us. So I suppose I just wanted to bring the Supiato up because I think it's really smart. It's really clever. I quite enjoyed getting to the bottom of how she worked, if that is how she works. Anyways, the big one, the game. Okay, so we have the human side. I don't think I have to go over too much of the basics because I mean that's what they're fighting for throughout all of QAs and AAs, basically, besides of course the ones that are 7 and 8, which are way different. But it's the human side and the witch's side. The humans must go through all the murders and somehow prove it wasn't done by witches. It could have been done by human hands. And the witches must fool the humans and make them give up and submit and say it was done by witches. So, I guess the first thing I'll talk about that I think was very endearing to me and quite a surprise that Ryukishi delved into, and I think Kumasawa is the one who mentioned it. Maybe, I can't quite remember. It's later on, I know that much, but or maybe, I don't know, but it's the fact that it must be possible for the human side, or else there is no game. If it's not possible by human hands, then it's rigged, essentially. So there's always that hope, which I think is such a nice way of describing. Oh, that's going up to the next one. I don't want to. Such a nice way of describing mysteries as a whole, with that, because they go into. I'll go into that later as well, because they also talk about the relationship between the author of mystery stories and mystery games and the one trying to solve it. But it's that they need to have trust in each other. The solver needs to have trust that the mystery is in fact solvable, which is moving quite ahead of myself, is what Beato hopes that Battler realizes, that it is solvable, and that's what he realizes. And then he knows, to quote the very, very iconic line, God, that shit was so hype, but it's possible for him. It has to be, or else there would be no game. But there's a lot of this, a lot of things going and working against him, and of course that brings me to the Reds, Umineko Reds. They're such a cool concept. I'll talk about blues when they're brought up, but The reds are so cool. I love the Umineko reds. They're such a cool way of. They're essentially the foundation of the game, because without reds, there's it's so there's anything, and the humans would win. It'd just be an infinite draw. And from what I remember, that's why the Reds. Yeah, that's why the Reds exist in the first place. Because he could just Devil's proof Battler. He could just Devil's proof everything. Say, there's actually 18 people, 19 people. There's actually 200 people outside the mansion, inside submarines, ready to infiltrate and kill everyone. He could say that, but he can't because of the Reds. And I think it's such a simple thing, but it's so incredible. And I think one of my favorite aspects of the mystery, and I reckon it was the same with my friend as we discussed it, is finding ways around the Reds, because they're like, some of them are, or rather I should say, it's each one is like a game in and of themselves. Like, oh man, I gotta talk about perhaps our favorite circumnavigation of, I don't think it's what we went with in the end, but did he have it here? All right, okay. Yeah, here it is. Okay, so the first red. When talking about the first game, Beato clearly declared that she guaranteed the identities of all unidentified corpses. And here we have, everyone except Kraus and Shannon potentially could have survived this on a technicality involving playing dead using their real bodies. That is to say, Beato guarantees the identities of all unidentified corpses, but she does not do so with Kraus and Shannon, who have their heads like half revealed, half shown. So that's just how, I think, in a nutshell, how the Reds work in general. Because there's nothing, I don't think there's anything, or rather I should say, how working with and against the Reds works is that you find that sort of, that sneaking bit of wordplay, or that small little hole, you pierce through it and you figure out how to piece it into the rest of your mystery solving. Like, this one's a little more simple. Genji, Kumasawa, and Nanjo are not killers. Okay, that doesn't mean they can't be accomplices. Boom, they're working with them. This is, and then, oh, these are other good ones. All of the survivors have alibis. Let us include the dead as well. In short, no kind of human or dead person on the island could have killed Kanon. Kanon did not commit suicide. Kanon did not die in an accident. So at first it seems really difficult, because we saw Kanon fucking dying, and Nanja was like, yeah, he's gone. But there's nothing here that says he died. There's nothing. If you look through it again, okay, everybody has alibis, perfect. There's nobody on the island, human, or there's no one on the island, dead or alive, who could have killed Kanon. But that doesn't matter if he's already dead. He didn't commit suicide. Yeah, he's not dead. He didn't die in an accident. Yeah, he's not dead. And it's the stuff like that that is so enjoyable about the mystery of this game, and I adored it. I guess I'll go through the final type of sort of, or another type of red that I think is important. That is where it's almost there to just simply close off and see, because this is for a locked room, and there's gonna be a lot of locked room reds. I'll probably briefly touch upon in episode 2, because it's locked room heaven. Oh my god. That's partially why Battler gave up. Also because I guess I can talk about it now, but it's because he can't suspect anyone, which is inherently what makes this so much harder for him, and not for us as the reader, the mystery solver. who can just easily suspect anyone because we're not related to them. And it's gradually what the mindset he adopts for the most part, but of course he still feels emotion when people are unfairly like treated and whatnot, and unfairly and for no reason just basically defiled and murdered in such obtuse and horrific manners. But anyways, this is a very good read. Beato cooked with this one. Both deaths were homicide. It is not the case that after the construction of the closed room, one of them committed suicide after committing murder. Furthermore, the murder was carried out with both the victim and the perpetrator in the same room. No method exists for the perpetrator to commit murder from outside the room. So, basically, it's saying it's confirmed murder. Okay, it has to be a homicide. Someone else has to kill both of them. It must be a homicide. And furthermore, it has to be with the victim and the perpetrator in the same mood. The murder must happen in the same murder. And there's no way for them to commit murder outside the room. And it can't be one of them committing murder and the other committing suicide. So, either we came up with two... Actually, I should say why this works so well. And what is so a very good thing about knowing Rule Y. This is why I wanted to bring it up earlier, because we're going to have to use it a lot to sort of go through with all the locked rooms in episode 2. But Rule Y is explicitly stated to be very good when working with locked rooms. And man, oh man, when it all started coming together, it's like having your mind blown. All these reds, they only matter if it's a closed room in the first place. If it's not, then it doesn't matter. Anyone could have done it. And that's the genius of Rule Y. So the initial way we did it was the culprit just has to set the chain before leaving out the window, and then lock the window. Boom, because it's Canon was already our main suspect for other reasons, and he just so happened to be the one to open it both times. So perfect. We have Canon and Canon committing the murders. Boom, he did it. He kills it with Genji alongside him, and then they set up the marker, the sigil, and then when Kumasawa comes with to keep maintaining the whole buddy system, boom, he cuts it, and then he locks the window. Perfect, wonderful. That does work, I would say. That does work. It's not what happens from what I know about the official solutions, which is something the official solutions of the Twilight. It is something we also considered, but it was almost too silly for us to think of. But when we really thought of Rule Y, when our friend sort of our Saint Bernard, or rather our Virgil, I should say, our Virgil sort of nudged us into thinking of, is the fact that if Rule Y makes it so all lies are depicted as reality to us, then if Kanon and Genji are both together and they're both accomplices, then the room doesn't even have to be locked. Or rather, he could have just cut it prior, murdered them, came back with Kumasawa, and since he's the one cutting it, the chain lock, he just has to fake it. Boom. Easy. And that's roughly how every closed room works, because just as I was saying with the relationship between the mystery writer and solver, it needs to be solvable though. That's what the solver trusts in the writer, that it's solvable. It needs to be, otherwise there's no reason for them to do it. And the same thing applies for closed rooms. If there can't be a legitimate closed room murder there can be a legitimate closed room murder, but with reds stopping certain things from happening, such as allowing for the perpetrator to commit murder from outside the room, it's essentially creating a perfect closed room. But, and as I mentioned, it needs to be solvable. It can't be a perfect closed room. It has to be just a normal room. and that's rule Y is the key to that lock of all the closed rooms, and it's so awesome. I love the Reds. It was so fun thinking about all of these. I think I absolutely adore the narrative and the narrative of Umineko and the characters and the theming and all of that. But perhaps what I'll miss the most, because I don't think I'll ever find anything quite like it, is the mystery and being able to interact with such a unique mystery. But anyways, back to what or rather not back. That's what I was meant to talk about. But I guess I'll continue with the soundtrack, because the next one goes. I'll go until answer for the furnitures versus people, because that's sort of when Shannon finds her resolve to just say, fuck off, Beatrice, I'm gonna do my own thing. So Scorpion Entrails, this is another Beato oriented piece. There's gonna be a lot of those, I figured, in episode 2, because this is her grand introduction. So I love the use of the organ, and it's almost regal, which, I mean, she basically is at that point. And once more, what's reminding me of seeing this background is with with Canon and Beatrice, is likely that either this never happened, or it's just a representation of internal dialogue between themselves. And that was one thing it was a concept we had actually thought of beforehand, not with Beato, but with Kinzo, which is what it turned out exactly to be once we were shown it in episode 5, because since Kinzo is dead by the starting time of every game, Natsuhi cannot be talking to Kinzo. There's just no way. So we interpreted it as internal dialogue between her, or not between, inside of herself, and that's exactly what it is. Unfortunately, so confirmed by us from Burn in a very, very brutal manner. But yeah, very, very good song. It also has that sort of that posh and that sneer looking down on you. It's very good at getting across Beato's vibe and her manner towards everyone. Life's End. This one is gonna be freaky. Okay, so this is the one. God, the goats are fucking massive in the PS3. They're slim. They look like normal people in the OG. Anyways, I think this is in Latin. I don't know if they're saying Domine or Domies. I don't know. I took some Latin. I forgot all of it. I know Domine is like Lord. I don't know. It might not even mean anything. It could just be one of those moments where game or composer chooses cool sounding language, makes them speak gibberish. But who knows? I'm sure there's a translation out there somewhere, but I'm not gonna look for it right now. I really like the tension and the vocals here. Staring down this Beato is very freaky, all alone. But we talked about earlier pieces in Umi that were strictly there for building tension. I think these past 3 pieces are they no longer feel like they describe the manner, and if so, they're showing the fact that it's no longer the Ushiromiya's manner. It's Beato's, it's Beatrice's, and these tracks are so good at setting that tone. I really like Life's End. I love the strings. The raising a half step every single time. Good stuff. Answer. This one is lovely. This is 100% Dai. You can hear Dai's piano. I will eat my foot if this isn't a die track. You can tell anything this guy makes if it's piano, but it's I really like the soft portion because for the most part resolve isn't very loud. It's quite quiet because it's an internal thing that you manifest and turn it into action, and that's rather exactly what this scene describes. It's Shannon gaining the resolve to no longer fear their love being taken away. It's that even if they do die, even if none of them make it to the Golden Land, they still loved, and therefore it's all okay. And it's a very beautiful resolve and conclusion that she comes to at the end of this section, and it much to Beato's dismay, of course. Very, very nice piece. I guess. Which one is where again? Okay, no, okay. I'll talk about furniture and people then, because I think it's a very good song, very good scene to sort of represent that whole conversation. So, returning back to Shannon, Canon, Jessica, and George now alongside the question, or rather like talking point of furniture versus people. So it's a struggle from Jessica, mainly Jessica, because Canon is so annoying about it. Sorry, Canon, but Jessica had to do a lot of work to get you to stop thinking that way. But it's only really apparent later on that you realize it's kind of honest. Excuse me. It's kind of odd how only, and actually I can bring out. Let me actually use the Umineko question answer that I've opened up. Oh, fun little fact if you guys don't know. If you execute Beato twice, she does like a little funny thing saying it's cute that you tried to kill me, but there is one way to do it, but I doubt you could pull it off. And she starts fucking giggling like the little shit she is. She does anybody else? That's another thing I will discuss when I'm talking about the murders. In particular, Canon having his body missing, which happens so very often, and it's another very telling thing. Yeah, okay. Anyways. Furniture. So, I'm not going to think about Genji's side of it quite yet, because he, and rather how his furniture relates to Kinzo, because originally I thought furniture was simply like the people who came from Fukuen, but I don't even know if I don't quite know if I believe that now, because we know Genji was a friend he made in Taiwan. So this might just be like an aspect of servitude with people who are more magic oriented, so not Goda, who were represented as in the magic scene, since furniture is a concept in the magic world, even extending from like Beato has, like, we can't say Beato invented furniture because Burn has it, Lambda has it. They understand the concept, so it's not strictly a her thing. So that's probably why Genji is also listed as furniture. But anyways, there's a fascinating thing of Shannon being given a heart, and heart creates magic. So more of that, without love it cannot be seen. And then Canon is another piece of furniture made by Kinzo, which I suppose handmade furniture. I guess it look, again, looking back on things with the full picture, I suppose it is telling of how they are Kinzo's child. But anyways, furniture versus people. So since furniture is something really only applicable to them, it almost becomes a unique aspect of their characters individually because it's something only those two have to overcome. Genji doesn't have to overcome it. Bro is chilling. He's handing out cookies. Wears a some sick monocle. He's just chilling. He knows what he wants to do and he doesn't. But the Canon and Shannon seem to take this. They seem to take the concept of furniture in a much different manner, and of course, that's most likely to do with all the trauma they went through throughout their time as Yasu. So it's, and I think most definitely what furniture boils down to is not being able to love, because that is the one aspect they bring up the most, because furniture of course means not being human. They're not human. They're on a different level. They're only worth half of what a person is, which is why they need the brooch. So it's almost combining the two halves into one whole, a person, rather than two separate entities, which is furniture. But even more so, I suppose what they're trying to say, what Ryukishi's trying to say, and what Yasu's trying to say is that to be human is to love, essentially. What makes humans who they are, what makes humans human is love. And that's the one thing furniture lack that the others around them do in fact have, and that's why they're furniture and the others are people. Yeah. I'd say that's enough for now about. Actually, I guess I'll get to the specific scenes. Actually, no. I wish I could ask, but it's just me, myself, and I. I guess I'll get to this scene since there's not much to directly say because you sort of see the resolution their characters find in that instant. But we have, of course, first. Just gonna double check, but I'm like 100% sure. Second Twilight, Jessica and Kanon, who is tormented by a Beato making fun of them and just being a righteous asshole. But it's here where Kanon finds this resolve to elevate himself from furniture into human. He feels after falling in love with Jessica and her responding back towards Kanon that he's allowed to love, and it all sort of culminates, even though they die, it all culminates into the fact that at that end he was happy, and he got to do what he got to do. And I guess it's best summed up with was it? Yeah, I don't think Kanon says anything. Yeah. Finally, at the very end, she got to be with the person she loved. She must have been happy. We don't get much from Kanon's perspective because he disappears. We know why, in terms of the mystery side, but it's almost a cruel joke to Jessica. But I'm sure Kanon, his personality was at the very least content that he got to show his feelings, because again, that's what the episode 6 duel is representing. It's their resolve to love, and Shannon wins that in episode 6, and here really both of them lose. They lose to Beato, which of course is the love. Well, I shouldn't say of course since it's not in this episode, but in episode 6 we learn Beato is the love Yasu holds for Battler. And it seems in episode 2 that Beatrice won. So, yeah, that's basically, it's the same thing that happens with Kanon and Jessica showing their resolve. Even though they die, they still got to be with each other. It's basically the same thing with Shannon and George. And Goda, who's also there, but we don't have to talk about him. But, yep. It's once again the reaffirmation. Even though in this scene Shannon has already shown her will and her ability to love, and she doesn't care if she is furniture, she still will love. And then may she become human, basically. So it's almost round two in that aspect. Round two is showing, yeah, fuck off Beatrice. But anyways, I guess I don't think I have anything there to do. I guess I'll go down through the songs a little bit more, and then I'll go up to Dread of the Grave, and then I'll discuss the Twilights, because there's a whole lot of fun stuff to do with that. Melody. Almost like a... I really like the part coming up with the wind instrument. Or maybe it's coming up, it's probably like in 20 seconds, actually, or maybe like 30 or 40. But it's... Melody's an interesting name from this, because it's almost like... It almost feels confused, or like... That's the feeling I get. It's confused until this section where it's sort of bum 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 bum. Once again, it gives off this more so like mystical magic vibe towards it, further reaffirming rather the fact that this mansion is no longer the Ushiromiya's. It's imbued with Beato's magic. I really like this track, and I don't have too much to say. Red Dread. Ah, okay. Happy Halloween for Maria, thank you. Yeah, I mean, this is just sort of like creepy track. I really like the vocal, yeah. It gives it almost a ghastly feeling, which is very appropriate for this scene and the other ones that I played in, where people have been horrifically murdered, because that's what starts happening in episode 2 onwards. Beato slowly starts getting more showy and flashy with it, because she's trying to prove that it was magic. So if it's really gruesome, then easy peasy. Like, there's no way one of our family members or loved ones could have done this, is what she's trying to get Battler to think, which makes it so she wins, essentially. So, yeah. Really, really great track. Moon. Oh, maybe I should have talked about George and Shannon's scene here. This is such a very, very good scene. And the music. It's so many of Dai's tracks with solo piano is, or rather solo piano melody. Usually they have like additional like supporting instruments, but it's I can only describe it as maybe like precious. I don't know. It's so heartfelt, and it lends to the scenes and the emotions so well. I think another thing I love so much about, or rather why I prefer Ryukishi novels, sound novels, as they're called, is without voices or anything special, is because the music speaks for how the characters feel. It's like I don't need anything else to tell that emotion to me. I feel it. I feel it from the song that plays when they act as they do, and they talk as they do, and what they feel. And I think it's a very good track of representing sort of that emotion I feel a lot of the times with these more heartfelt pieces, some Dai goodness, I'll call it. I'm so glad fate had it happen and Ryukishi got Dai on board to compose for his stories, because I don't think they'd be the same without them. They're basically like one and the same for me. I really adore this part coming up. The slow pace and sort of subdued nature of the earlier parts of the song, with the occasional outburst, that is how emotion is. It's not how conflicting and complex emotion is. It's not just all big outburst. It can be, but that's not complex. It's very simple. Like anger is always just loud, ferocious. It's unbeating, unbearable. But it's you hear you can hear it all here in this song, and I think it's very beautiful for that. But anyways, where? I think this is the one I skipped through to earlier. This is a bit of a funny one. I like the it sounds like a battle theme almost. Sounds like something that would play in Higurashi, funnily enough, at least this part. Whenever the club would get up to some antics, start going insane. The club solos, the Ushiromias, by the way, 100%. I would never want to fuck with those guys and gals. Oof. But this is it's very good. I like the percussion backgrounds. The maracas. That's picking up for my mic, but. And then the piano, almost like a contrasting sound to the rest of the song. Really cool song. And then the vocals as well. And then I adore this track. I adore Dread of the Grave. I'm such a massive fan of Ace Attorney. I love the original trilogy, and I absolutely adore Great Ace Attorney, and to hear Battler with his own pursuit theme is just oh man, this track is just awesome. Like I don't have to explain. I guess I probably should. I love this the scale, like the descending scales. The first progression, egging it on. Dun, 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 dun. It's like shit, man. The drums are hyped too. They want to see where this is going. And we get the slow introduction. We get our electronic solo. The main melody. It's addicting. This song is addicting. This is one of the many songs I played while theorizing and throwing shit out there, because I felt like the neurons inside my brain were activating and piecing things together, piecing things together more, just purely off this song being played. It's so great. And I'll use that now to go over the Twilight Mysteries, the locked room hell. So I kind of went through breaking through all of the locked rooms really with Rule Y, explaining that in this at episode 1. Excuse me. Yeah, I definitely think episode 4 QA I'll go through everything in specific, how the conclusion we came to and how we got there, or maybe we'll see where things go. But for right now, there's a lot more reds going on to deal with now, especially in episode 2. That's where the most reds are in, I think. Yeah, because Beato realizes that, okay, throwing reds out all willy-nilly is actually kind of bad for me, which is what Battler picks up on, sort of gets back at Beato in this moment. So it's really it's rule wise, it's when everything slowly starts coming together. So like for instance here, all 5 of these are guaranteed wolves because of the butterflies, another rule Y factor. And it's the reason this episode 2 is such a struggle for Battler is because he can't suspect anyone. He wants it to be a 19th person. So it's almost like it's so much easier for the reader to just start figuring things out. And of course, Beto sort of locks down that chapel needs to be a locked room, correct? And it couldn't have passed through anybody's hands. So either it could have just been Maria unlocking the door, which, I mean, there's nothing stopping her from being an accomplice. She's the one always getting the letters after all. Or, as it was in episode 1, it just doesn't have to be a locked room. It's all just an illusion. It's figuring out that illusion. And if you remember, you probably don't because it's such a small little detail, but I remember because of all the scrutinizing we had to do. It's Genji who opens the door. And Genji's an accomplice. He's a wolf. So it's just Rule Y is such a key part. It's so fascinating. You understand the magic. You understand it. You're willing to interact with it, and all of a sudden, everything Beato makes sense because it's as I believe Byrne puts it. Beato is an embodiment of the rules. She is the rules. Once you figure them out, you're essentially figuring out who she is. And I guess episode 7 I'll talk more about what that means exactly to me because I don't have it quite yet. I'll think about it later. Same thing with Ojisaka and Kanon. This is where things get a little very more oddly specific. I suppose if you want to see our thought processes, this most of the writing is my friend's. He's the only one who adds to it, but I would write out we would discuss it in our channels, our Discord channels, and we would slowly build ideas for everything. So this is a result of like weeks upon weeks of labor and just thinking. So, but I'm not going to go through all of it because that's way too much time. But once more, the solution, of course, is just it should just be it's just simply not a locked room, and I think it's the same with George Shannon and Goda. Same with Nanjo and Kumasawa. This one is a different one. This is a very useful Rule Y. And another thing, I guess I'll mention it now. The sheeps and the wolves. I'll put that above Rosa Triss. We learn about the sheeps and the wolf thing, and by Maria in her game, and it's very useful also for figuring out like how murders can happen because it's the thing they're avoiding in episode 1. They always have a buddy system going on, so avoid this wolves and sheep problem. But regardless, it's once again it's Rule Y that creates the magic. If Genji, Shannon, and Goda are all accomplices, it doesn't matter what they see, because it can just be fake. It doesn't have to be real. And I feel like to some, I'm saving you for later, Rosa. I feel like to some that may be unsatisfying, but it's more so. I think it's seeing the truth behind that. It's like this is a metaphor that'll only work for other glasses wearers, but it's like wiping your glasses. Or actually, no, I'll ignore glasses. It's like wiping your eyes in the morning and finally getting rid of all of that gunk and seeing clearly for the first time that day. It's a wonderful feeling, and Rule Y is damn. Ryukishi, I can only give props. It's damn, and this is, I suppose. I did want to say this for episode 4 because that's the last time I'll be discussing like the pure mystery solving aspects of the movie, because we wanted to finish theorizing before episode 5 just so we could have like the least amount of help as possible, because I believed, or rather we both believed, as is revealed to us in episode 5, that Umi can be figured out from episode 4 and the content that was there. And I wanted to believe in ourselves that we could figure out what Beato is trying to tell us, or rather Battler, and if we could pick up on that, because because I do think that no, actually, I think another thing that is always kind of felt odd to me is that a lot of some people think Umi isn't about the mystery, but I don't quite agree with that, and I think I'll get on about that later on when we learn more about Yasu and Battler and their connection and really the mysteries as a whole. But for now, I suppose that'll be it. I think this is a very interesting game board because there are so many accomplices from what I remember. Yep, Rosa, Maria, Genji, Shannon, and Goda are all wolves, and I'll go into good old World End Dominator. This another rave song. There's the bells again. I think do they appear in every like EDM sort of track, ZTS track? I think they do. But what a way for Rosa to go out. What a way to end the chapter. I think this is the ending. Yeah, it should be. But anyways, I'm not here to talk about this scene because you already know it's fucking sick. And the World End Dominator, it's another song where it's just I don't have to say anything. I'm just gonna. That's really the violin. Oh, it's so good. Turning your piano, like your sad sort of piano or like reflecting song into an awesome fucking rave track is I cannot but applaud. That's just awesome. It's just awesome. Anyways, I guess I just wanted to bring up Rosa Triss because I've been like introduced to it over the past couple of weeks. And I think it's a fascinating theory because honestly that's everything in Umi. If you just I know that again the manga has explicit answers, but as far as I'm concerned with the VN, everything I say is a theory. Like Yasu being the culprit is just a theory to me. It's the one I believe in, but it is ultimately a theory because there's nothing ever explicitly said to us in the Umineko visual novel that it is Yasu. They are the culprit. So I think it's fascinating that Rosa Triss and other theories alike can pop up and act as their own truth because that's another fun about Umineko that I adore about it. The answers aren't given. You have to figure that you have to figure you don't even have to figure them out. You have to figure your own answers out. Like as I referred to back to the Eva Hideyoshi second Twilight of episode 1, I came up with the theory that the culprit can just set the chain before like it was so like crazy too because I was reading on the original I'm reading on the original graphics and sprites, so the backgrounds are in typical 7th expansion fashion where they're like blurred and like they're like blurred images of real photos, and I remember most rooms have windows in them, and I was asking my friend, I was like, I can't quite tell if there's a window in this scene, but could you check because this red or this Twilight rather has barely any reds on it, even though this is a quite long sentence and it says a lot. There's so much room for exploration, and I went to go, or rather he went to go check the PS3's backgrounds, and lo and behold, there is a window, and there's nothing about it being locked at all. So that's where I came up with the idea of holy shit, they can just set the chain before leaving out the window, and then they can just be the first person back inside, and then they lock it. And is it what happens? I don't know. It could be both this and Kanon just cutting the chain works. Eva and Hideyoshi could have opened the door for him after they knocked on the door saying it's time for dinner, and and they could have murdered them. And either way, both these answers work. I can use the fun cat box analogy that is used in reference to Rokenjima and Devil's Proofs and all that stuff so many times, but there is no answer. So two truths can coexist, and that's what I love about Umi so much. That's what I love about Umineko so much. It's awesome. But anyways, Rosa Triss. I don't want to. I suppose I just wanted to acknowledge it. I'm not really one for arguing explicitly. Like, I'm not trying to deny people theories or whatnot. I just wanted to acknowledge it because I think it's a really, really fascinating take on things, because she is most certainly behind a lot of what's going on here, at least in my view. Because my assumption is that since she's the only survivor of those that went to the chapel, she probably just took a deal with Yasu, and boom, now we're working together. Awesome. Because Rolex, money involved. Adults will work for any reason, even kill their own siblings, I suppose. But it's really, really fascinating. I'd really like to look more into it, and I don't know. I guess it could be fun to have that's what my friend is also doing. He's having he's having his own game with a friend of his over our theory versus their theory. So I would never be opposed to doing that. I just think it's a really cool thing. This is kind of I guess, yeah, I'll keep going. This is actually kind of formatted perfectly awesome. So the Rosa Tortures, actually no, I'm going to get to the song that better represents that, and then I'll talk about that scene. So Black Liliana. This, yeah. Another good track at emphasizing the regal nature of these witches. They're all wearing puffy dresses. They all have loads of servants. They drink the best tea. They have all that. They have really high standards. I really like where is it? I love how it sounds so slothful. I love it. They almost seem. It almost kind of gives me the same vibes of before this part, at least, that they're kind of just bored. They're just kind of doing whatever. Whatever. Let's play these games where we take control of these people's lives and torture them for eternity. Awesome. And then of course this part's really good at showing that sinister aspect of these witches, where what they're doing is all kind of sort of really messed up, and it's from our and Battler's perspective, we just think wow, these witches are fucking, they're crazy. Oh my god, we I'm fearing for my life. I don't. Ugh. But it's a really good song at showing that. I quite like it. Rest. So we have Rest, Daydreams, and Melody vocals. Okay. I don't want to use I think Daydreams End is the. I don't want to talk about that song. That song's. It's not meant to be unsettling, but I feel like it'd be unsettling when talking about Rosa's, the tea party, I should say. I don't want to say Rosa's torture scene, but it's quite a fascinating scene. Reevaluating it and looking at it again, because I've always thought it was so personal. Why is Rosa the one that gets fucking tortured, has to eat her siblings, see them get fucking chopped up, and her and all that. But then I guess this is where we're seeing more of her reactions towards Maria, and how she acts towards her in a very awful manner. So it does make sense in that way, that I guess you could take from all that okay, that's why Beato is being awful towards Rosa and making her live through these awful pains. But it's still a bit odd, and it makes a lot more sense when you learn the connection between Beato and Maria and the alliance. But this is a very the horror done in the written horror in the scene is fabulous. I really like it. That sounds. I'm not too into Guro and all that stuff, but this is a really, really awesome scene, and it's a very it's like the pieces are all there, and it's just they snap when on like upon a reread. Like, oh, so that's why Rosa was tortured like this, because we see it later on, and it's all connected. Wonderful. That's about it. This next is Daydream's End. This is the Rosa Swooning sprite. She knows she's fucked. I I could not tell you what this language is. Wait. I heard Yume and I thought dream, and it's called Daydream's End. So I thought it was Japanese for a second, but I can't quite. It could be Japanese, Italian, Latin, but it's very. I like the female chorus. Very well done. It can be used for a lot of different scenes, thanks to that nature of that. It's odd nature being just like a pure female chorus song. Melody vocal. So this is just a previous song, but with instrumentals. Awesome. I'll need someone to confirm for me, but is this the ED? I don't know why it's not coming for me, because I remember all the other EDs, but I'm assuming this was an ED, because I don't remember playing anywhere else, but I think it's a nice addition. I don't have too much to say on that. And finally, it all works out perfectly. Bernkastel and Lambda Delta. This song is otherworldly, and I think it's absolutely fitting for the Sea of Fragments and the mystical place that the witches' tea parties take place in. So Bernkastel and Lambda, these figures are, as someone who read Higurashi first, they're fascinating, because we of course in Saikoroshi we see this version of Rika that takes on the name Frederica Bernkastel, and we also see like the poems at the start of every Higurashi episode, also by this Bernkastel. So I guess I want to check 1 second, because I think Bernkastel is introduced, I think, in the episode 1 Tea Party. She should be. Yeah, and she's just chilling out. Okay. Let me see her text, because I think that's one of the... Yeah, and she breaks the fourth wall a lot, and well, she either breaks the fourth wall or she's talking to Battler. And I think it's a mix of both. I don't think it doesn't have to be one or the other. I think it can be both. But what I find the most fascinating, especially over the course of the is how like her character page shifts. So she doesn't have one in episode 1, okay. But she's described to us as the Witch of Miracles, who's lived for 1,000 years. Okay, so miracles, that makes sense, because she keeps rolling the dice. She melds all the fragments together and creates that 1 in a million to create the ideal Hinamizawa for herself. But it's fascinating. I love the meta witches aspect of this, where I still don't quite have the firmest script on it, but it's awesome nonetheless. It's Bernkastel and Lambda are such awesome figures in the story, because you can tell immediately that they're Beatrice. It's like how I mentioned back in the first ramble that Beatrice is the way, like, Kinzo has an ungodly presence on the entire Ushiromiya family, that he doesn't have to show up for all 4 QAs. Like, he doesn't exist for all 4 QAs, that his presence is still felt, which is insane. That's aura right there. That's that old man Ushiromiya Kinzo aura right there. And to see Kinzo act in such a submissive way to Beatrice, also alongside like all the theory, not all the theories, all the mythos and stuff surrounding her, all the ideas and theories that elevates her to a place even higher than Kinzo. And now we have Bernkenstahl and Lambda Delta, who are very obviously even higher than Beatrice and Beatrice by a long shot. They're Voyager witches, as they call them in episode three's tips, I think. Oh, okay, there we go. No, it's episode 4 then. Anyways, there, and then the Witch's Certainty, which I still can't quite, I still can't quite decide if Lambda Delta is meant to be Takano or Satoko. I don't think it really matters since they kind of embody similar parts. That this is straying from less Umi's territory and more so just like the When They Cry universe as a whole. But I think it's absolutely fascinating. It's so cool. These characters are awesome, and I love whenever they're on screen. I'm so glad they get more presence and answer arcs because they are an absolute joy to watch and read anytime they're on screen. And they're fascinating because they represent concepts, and later on they also, especially with Burn, they also twist those concepts, those beliefs that they represent. So it's just, there's not too much reason to talk about them now, but really, really, really cool characters. Also, I love the. I clicked out too early. I love the little fit she got going on, Lambda, with the fucking the jack-o'-lantern, and then of course Burns tail. But anyways, I think I about said everything. That I'm definitely gonna do this for the later episodes because that came out so much easier and probably in a lot more comprehensible manner. So yeah, I suppose that's it. Bye bye.